It is 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Western European Time, 10 p.m. Central European Time, 11 p.m. Eastern European Time, midnight further Eastern European Time, and we are live on YouTube. And I hope you all can hear me, so please let me know if you can hear me. If you can't, I suppose you won't let me know, but I guess you will complain about that. So, thank you all for being here. And I'll have a quick look at the chat to see what's going on. There are 4 people in here, so God bless all of you. We have just entered Holy Week, the week before Easter. This is the week in which our Savior was betrayed. And there are some stories to talk about today too. And as always, I will respond to some of the things going on in the chat too. Before we begin with that, I just want to say that if you want to support my work, you can send a super chat by clicking the little dollar sign under the chat and send any amount you'd like, $1, $10, $1 million. And I will read all super chats loud in the chat, unless you write something really crazy. So please don't do that. In that case, I will only thank you for your donation. You can also support my work through PayPal and Patreon, or by buying some of my merchandise. And there are links for all of that under this video. Just look in the box below. But first, I just heard of some breaking news. I heard this news after I set up this event, and here it comes. The moderate coalition party just reversed their position on the proposed constitutional changes in Sweden, the ones that would end freedom of the press. The moderates and the other alliance parties, that is the Center Party, the Christian Democrats, and the Liberal Party, now want a new parliamentarian inquiry to investigate which kind of changes of the Swedish constitution that might be needed. This means the changes are stopped, for now. And this would not have happened without the Sweden Democrats and their opposition to these changes, and it would not have happened unless alternative media and ordinary Swedes campaigned against this. So today, I am at least a little proud to be Swedish. God bless Sweden. Now, let's have a look at our first story. I'll have some coffee first. So last Saturday in Stavanger, in the west of Norway, a girl was going to celebrate her 18th birthday by going out clubbing for the first time in her life. Yes, you can do that at 18 in Norway, in case anyone wonders. However, that evening was not a happy evening for this young girl. In the line to a club in Stavanger, a club called Beverly Hills Fun Pub, this girl and some of her female family members were attacked by a bunch of immigrant men. A large crowd of these men flocked around the women, and the 18-year-old girl could not see the other women anymore. The men flocked around her. These men put their hands down her pants and put their hands on her butt and on her crotch. When a group of people in the line got closer to the entrance, the men stopped, and the crying girl was able to get away. Horrible. But it is not enough just to say that this was horrible. This is an obvious case of Taharrush. We saw it in Cologne, we saw it in Stockholm, and now we have seen it in Stavanger. In Stavanger, police was notified right after this happened. Several mainstream media outlets were contacted too, but they were not interested in reporting on this. The alternative media site reset.no chose to write about this. And we now have 13 people here, so that's great. Thank you all for that. Thank you very much for being here. And remember, I depend on you. Without you, I would not be able to do this, so I'm very grateful about you all being here. And as I haven't seen any complaints yet, I suppose you can all hear me fine. If not, please let me know. Let's look at our next story. We have to look carefully at Turkey and at Erdogan. Last year, there were some tensions between Turkey and Greece. 1 year ago today, The Guardian reported about these tensions. The Guardian wrote that before the referendum that was held in Turkey a little later, Erdogan had told a Turkish-UK forum attended by the British Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson. Erdogan said the following: "We have a referendum on 16th of April. After that, we may hold a Brexit-like referendum on the negotiations." The negotiations Erdogan was talking about was the EU negotiations. The referendum was the one handing over more powers to Erdogan. Erdogan also added, quote, "No matter what our nation decides, we will obey it. It should be known that our patience, tested in the face of attitudes displayed by some European countries, has limits. Close quotes. Sorry about that. Greece reacted. Panos Kamenos, the Greek Minister of National Defense and founder of the supposedly right-wing party Independent Greeks, declared the following at a military parade marking the 196th anniversary of Greece's war of liberation against Ottoman Turkish rule. Quote, "The Greek armed forces are ready to answer any provocation. We are ready because this is how we defend peace." Close quote. On March 28th, 2017, I commented on this in a video I called "Greece, Putting Turkey in Its Place?" Recently, this video has started to get more views and comments again, although it was almost 1 year ago that I uploaded it. It will be 1 year ago tomorrow. In that video, I wholeheartedly sided with Greece. I still do. It is not strange that the video is still gaining views and comments, even though it is one of my older videos, and perhaps not as good as some of my newer ones. The reason is very simple. Turkey is at it again. Recently, a newspaper with close ties to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for the formation of a joint Islamic army to fight Israel. Islamic anti-Semitism combined with turko-fascism. Isn't that nice? Sarcasm. If anyone wonders, I stand with Israel here, just like I stood with Greece last year. The Turkish president is a semi-dictator, and a dangerous one. He has wrecked secularism in Turkey, and he is working on Islamizing the country. Turkey was born out of a bloodbath where Armenians and Pontic Greeks were massacred. But Turkey turned into a relatively secular state. The military guaranteed that. However, with the rise of Erdogan, Turkey is becoming Islamized. Erdogan has not denied his support for the report from the newspaper, which is the Turkish state's mouthpiece, daily Yeni Safak. Erdogan has established military bases in Qatar and Somalia, and he recently reached an agreement with Sudan to acquire a Sudanese island in the Red Sea to be used as a military base. And he has not forgotten about Greece. Erdogan has repeatedly threatened to invade Greek islands in the Mediterranean. So we should stand with Israel, and we should stand with Greece. We should stand against Turkey and Erdogan. But what is EU doing? The EU is trying to appease the dictator in Ankara by urging its member states to approve a further 3.7 billion euros, roughly 4.7 billion US dollars, to, quote, help Turkey deal with Syrian refugees who arrived in their country, close quote. Did I mention that Turkey has invaded Syria? Turkey should not get a single euro cent. This money should be invested in protecting Greece and Europe's borders towards Turkey, a country that is a threat to everyone in its neighborhood, and everyone in Europe, including the Scandinavian countries, are now in Turkey's neighborhood. Let's not forget that the Turkish Air Force recently destroyed one of the oldest churches in the history of Christianity, a church in Afrin, Syria. A Turkish member of parliament, a man named Alparslan Kavaklioglu, representing Erdogan's party, the Justice and Development Party, recently stated, quote, the fortune and wealth of the world is moving from the west to the east. Europe is going through a time that is out of the ordinary. Its population is declining and aging. It has a very old population. So people coming from outside get the jobs there. But Europe has this problem. All of the newcomers are Muslim, from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. Those who come from these places are Muslim. It is now at such a level that the most popular name in Brussels, Belgium, is Mohammed. The second most popular name is Meli, and the third one is Ayse, close quote. Apparently, Ayse is Turkish for Aisha. Kavaklioglu, who is also head of the Turkish Parliament's Security and Intelligence Commission, also said that, quote, the Muslim population will outnumber the Christian population in Europe. This has increased the nationalistic, xenophobic, and anti-Islam rhetoric there. Hence, marginal, small parties have started to get large numbers of votes. But there is no remedy for it. Europe will be Muslim. We will be effective there, Allah willing. I am sure of that. Close quote. I think we should listen to that Turkish member of parliament, just like we should listen to Turkish President Erdogan. In this case, I don't think they are lying. I think they are telling us the truth. And that is why Turkey needs to be fought and Islam needs to be fought. And if we want to stop Europe from becoming a childless, aging continent, we need a Christian revival in Europe. Christian families have children. The childlessness, the declining population, is a direct result of the dechristening of Western Europe that cultural radicals have worked for since the French Revolution of 1792. We need a strong Christian Europe, and we need to fight Islam. We need to stand with Greece and Israel against Turkey and Erdogan. So let's see if there's anything going on in this chat. There are 20 people watching right now, and I see there are some new people and some people who I recognize, but some new people, and that's great. So before I move on any further, I'll look at some of the comments here. Vladimir Ramirez says, loving the video, Swede. Thank you very much. Gary Cox says, from England, and I credit you, bro. Been sub for the last couple of years. I guess you're one of my old ones. And Supernova says, hello, Swede. I'm watching you from work in Canada. Oh, good to know. Free Tanker says, good evening, Swede. Did you lose yourself? I think that's what she means. I'm not really what he means. I'm not really sure. That Danish expression looks a little odd, but feel free to explain what you mean. Oh, Mass Faith is here. Subscribe, thumbs up. Thank you very much. So I have some more to look at here. I appreciate that you are taking the time to watch and to comment in the chat. If you want to support my work, feel free to send a super chat. Just click the little dollar sign, and I will read out all super chats except for anti-Semitic and racist ones loud. You can also support my work through PayPal, Patreon, and by buying my merchandise. Just take a look at the links in the box below this video. So let's talk a little about Sweden too. In Gothenburg, the municipality is hiring communicators. Basically, they are propagandists. As far as I understand, the communicator's job is to tell people how good everything is in Angered, one of the so-called vulnerable areas in Gothenburg. So, Gothenburg really is hiring propagandists. If I lacked the conscience, I would apply. However, I lack the necessary education to apply. This is not free. Gothenburg already employs 236 propagandists at a daily cost of almost 500,000 Swedish kroner. That's roughly 60,000 US dollars. Isn't Sweden amazing? Sadly, Gothenburg has made itself known in later years as a corrupt city filled with gang violence. That's really sad because I like Gothenburg, but I don't like what has happened to Sweden's second largest city. So those were the stories I thought I was going to talk about to begin with. Okay, let's see. Leonardo Russo says, but I'm praying for you and blessings. Thank you very much. And Virre says, Uddevalla has enough. Oops, do I go to jail now? I don't think so. Free Tanker says, sorry for my Danish, you look a bit leaner. I asked if you lost a bit of weight. Oh, that kind of lose. Maybe. I'm trying to work out. It's my 40-year crisis, you know. Okay. Morgan St. Clair says, Turkey uses chemical weapons. Well, it would surprise me if they're not. Well, I hope they're not, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are. Or, I mean, yeah. If they are not using chemical weapons, I would be surprised. If they are using chemical weapons, I would not be surprised. You got to be careful with these double negations. I should know this by now. So there's 20 people in here, and that's great. And I appreciate you all for being here. So just remember, without you, I would not be able to do what I do. So thank you very much. And it's almost Easter. We are in Holy Week. So I hope all of you have a nice Easter to look forward to. So since you're all here, there's some things I would like to know. How did you people find this channel? Please let me know in the chat. And I'll be quiet for a few moments and look at any responses. Free Tanker says, it's working. Congrats, brother. Well, thank you. Also, I've been trying to fast a little during Lent, so I have avoided sugar and soft drinks and stuff like that. Not on Sundays though, because on Sundays you celebrate, but the other days. I did the same thing last year, but this year it was harder. Interestingly enough. Morgan St. Clair says, "Why don't Sweden's men stand up to communist women of Sweden?" Well, that's a tough one because, in general, women are more left wing than men. In general, not always, but in general. So, in general, a lot of men needs to draw a line. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of men who are afraid. I don't know how to put this nicely. You know, I'm a Christian. I don't do this stuff. I I wait until I get married. But I think a lot of men, to put it bluntly, I think a lot of men won't stand up to communist women because they're afraid to not get laid. I mean, I'm sorry for being so blunt, but I think that's a big reason. And I think it would all be better if there would be a new revival in Sweden and people would start living by the word of God, and that would solve more or less all of Sweden's problems. I mean, actually, yeah, because I mean, okay, people cannot create a perfect society. We just can't. That's why I'm opposed to utopianism, because only God can create a perfect society. Uh, oh, you heard this rant before, but anyway, but if we follow the word of God, society will be a lot better. Let's see. Mass Faith Free says you were in our chat. Subscribed. Check out your merchandise. No picture. What is Dimmy? Oh, a Dimmy is. Yeah, I know. I need to work on those pictures. Technology isn't my field. I have someone who might be able to help me with that, but well, I haven't gotten around to that yet. But Dimmy is under Islamic rule. Jews and Christians could get well status as protected people if they would pay a special tax called the jizya, and if they would submit to Islam and never challenge Islam, they would be allowed to live as second or third class citizens, and that's what dhimmi is. That's dhimmitude. Uh, so just Google dhimmi and you will find a lot about that. Um, Maybe I should do a video explaining what dhimmitude is. Let's see. Morgan St. Clair says, "Don't Swedish men know this?" I think I saw you said something about how women love men who ignore them. I'm not sure if women love men who ignore them, but I think a lot of women are attracted to men who ignore them. I think I have observed that, and I think some Swedish men knows this, but a lot of men, well, Sweden has been very left wing for a long time. Hilton 11,000 says protection money. That's right. Dhimmi is basically Jews and Christian paying protection money and submitting to Islam to to not be killed, I guess, to be allowed to live, but to live as second or third class citizens. Uh, sometimes people sometimes people talk about, for instance, the Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula, which was in Spain and Portugal for 800 years or so, and they talk about how this was a paradise, and everyone lived peacefully together. Christians, Jews, Muslims, although the Muslims had the upper hand because it was Islamic rule. However, that's not true. The truth is that they were allowed to survive if they didn't fight Islam, but they had to submit and they had to pay this protection money. Uh, Mass Faith Free says, "Yuck, we are Swedish. Would love something Swedish." Svensson grandpa from Sweden. Yeah, do you know where in Sweden your grandpa came from? Morgan says, St. Clair says, "It's not Islam that's the problem in Sweden. It's low testosterone males." Actually, I think it's a combination here. I think it's both. Or, you might have heard me before talking about how political correctness is the inner threat and Islam is the outer threat. That's sort of how I see it. Although, with political correctness, we opened up the European borders to Islamic immigration, or actually it's turned into an invasion. So we have imported a Trojan horse. I mean, I don't know how to put it nicely. That's what happened. And of course, Sweden is a very feminist country. Interestingly enough, since Sweden never had a female prime minister, but a lot of the politics is very feminist. So a lot of men have been brought up to be emasculated. For some reason, I was able to avoid that. One could wonder why. I blame it on my Finnish-born grandparents. Uh, Gary Cox says, Jisja, is that what you're talking about in the Iberian Peninsula? Yes, exactly. And that's what's going to happen to all of Western Europe if we don't stand up for ourselves. And I'm not talking about, hopefully, I'm not talking about anything violent, but I'm just saying we have to draw a line in the sand, just like Greece drew a line in the sand 1 year ago when they said our defense is ready to protect us, to defend the peace. And we have to do the same thing because the alternative is just too horrible. Vladimir Ramirez says, women create emasculated men. Would you like to know why? If you have a good theory on that, I would love to hear it. Free Tanker says, it's the Swedish media that is the biggest problem. It's a joke. Your TV is so feminized. Yes, feminized in a bad way. I mean, I love femininity. Hard word. But I mean, I love women. I love femininity. I love women who are feminine, but I don't like feminism. At least not third wave feminism. We could argue the case of first wave feminism, but the third wave, forget about it. I mean, I'm engaged, and I wouldn't marry a woman who acted like a man, or I mean, because that's my role. Mass Faith Free says, millionaire elitist. We haven't talked to our dad since 2000. Very characteristically womanizers like Islamic men, not Muslim but abusive of women and children. Yeah, that sounds about right, sadly. And Laurie P says, President Thomas Jefferson was against paying Mohammedans blackmail or protection money, aka the Treaty of Tripoli. That's right, Laurie. And you know about this, the Barbary Wars, wasn't that what it was called in the late 1700s? Sweden and the United States were actually allies in that war against the Barbary states, against this blackmail, and that's interesting. I think Sweden should team up with the U.S. again against this kind of crazy stuff, but I don't see that happening. But we'll see what happens in the election. Now that the constitutional changes are at least postponed until after the election, so we'll see what happens. And in one way, I mean, I hope for a different government in Sweden, but I don't know who to hope for. I would still tell people to vote for the Sweden Democrats because they were the only party opposed to the constitutional changes all since they started discussing this, and they are the only ones who have at least some kind of reason when it comes to immigration policies and Islam. I think they're too soft. I think they're too left-wing on economic policies, but I still tell people to vote for them. There are some other parties outside of parliament that are trying to get in. I don't have much belief in that happening in the next election. Stoffe Hallberg says hello. Well, hello to you too. Are you having a nice evening, Stoffe? Vladimir Ramirez says, look at the Bonobo monkey society. When women create a society that is safe for them, they begin to seek power and begin to breed with weaker men so they are easier to control. There is something to that, but I think that's that's really very weird because in one way it seems like a lot of women are attracted to men who are, well, basically pigs. And I think there's a difference between being an alpha male and being a douchebag or a pig. There is. But that has been confused. So I think an alpha male will naturally attract women. That's one thing. But a lot of people will confuse alpha males, and an alpha male will be a gentleman. Make no mistake about that. An alpha male will be a medieval knight, a gentleman, the good kind of cowboy. He will not be a pig. He will not beat women. He will not do any of that crazy stuff. And he will not attack people who are weaker than himself. He will stand up for himself, his wife, his family, his society, his country, but he will not do any crazy stuff. But it's been confused So you have a lot of people, a lot of guys who grow up without fathers. They will they will look at these gangster movies and they will think, oh, that's what a man should be, and they don't know because they don't have a dad in the home. And this doesn't only happen in America. If someone thinks that, it happens in Sweden and Norway too. I've seen it. People who think that Tony Soprano is some kind of role model. Of course, he's not. I mean, I like Sopranos as well as something fun to watch. Although I'm more critical of it now than I was before I became a Christian. I digress. But anyway, the point is, there has been a confusion between gangsters, pigs, and alpha males, and I think they will still attract women. But I mean, without a Christian society, things will just go very, very wrong. Stoffe Hallberg says, "Yes, I have. Do you have?" Oh, yes, I'm having a nice evening now. It's wonderful, and I'm preparing to celebrate Easter. I might be visited by my dad on Easter. That's nice. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Morgan St. Clair says the problem is Swedish men act like women. A lot of Swedish men do. Not all, but a lot of them. And Free Tanker says there are a lot of ton Swedish men, but they are oppressed. I guess you could say that. Even let's see, even in Norway, it's not as bad as in Sweden. Uh, Laurie P says in South Africa, the black Africans let the women work in the fields. Men don't provide. So look what will happen when the white farmers give up their land. The black men will not farm their land. I think the problem with South Africa, well, they kind of just turned the tables around. And then you add some identity politics and some Marxism to this, and you just get a horrible situation. And as far as I understand it, uh, when South Africa was colonized, I mean, it was colonized by Europeans, but it was also colonized by Africans coming from other parts of Africa. And only the Europe. I might be wrong now, but I think only the Europeans were really interested in farming. So if you throw out all the farmers or kill them or whatever, it's going to be a disaster. And add to this Marxist financial policies, it's just terrible. And I mean, obviously, I don't care about people's skin color. I'm a Christian. I mean, here are neither Greek nor Jew. But I think what South Africa needs, maybe even more than Sweden, is the gospel. Really, that's the one thing that could overcome these conflicts. Morgan St. Clair says, obviously Sweden's women are going to be attracted to real men. Barbarian Muslims versus Swedish beta males. Yeah, and that's exactly my point. You confuse when you confuse alpha males with gangsters. Well, a lot of the men coming to Sweden will act like gangsters, and they will attract Swedish women because they will look for someone who can protect them, even if that guy is a pig or abusive. But I mean, that's a really broad statement. Of course, it's not true about all Swedish men and stuff like that. I mean, of course, there are a lot of exceptions to that rule. But at the same time, I really think political correctness, social democracy, leftism, whatever you want to call it, did this to a country. You know, I'm writing a book about Sweden. I don't know when I will be done with that one. I thought I would be done by Christmas. I thought by Easter, and now I'm at Easter now, and I'm halfway through the book, so it might not be done until the end of this year. I have written about 20,000 words, and I'm trying to get it to 45,000 words. So we'll see. Mass Faith Free says, the Swedish people need to drop all differences, united in masses. Out of everybody, there has to be a strong person like Beata from Poland, PM of Hungary, or President Trump. They need mass protection. Yeah, that's right. I was to Poland recently, and that was wonderful. Let's see. And Morgan St. Clair says an alpha male won't beat women or hate them. He just won't tolerate female bullshit. Yeah, I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Let's see. Alleluia says, good evening all. Well, good evening to you too. And Laurie P says, it's the Europeans that provide the food. I agree with you. It's not about skin color. I was pointing out the difference in men who will provide for their families and those men who will not. Well, I'm happy that, I mean, I assumed we would agree. And I'm happy about that. Vladimir Ramirez says, alpha and beta is a social construct that changes within generations. I guess you could say that. I'm not really sure because I guess we could talk about leaders and followers rather than alpha and beta. And most people are followers, while some people will be leaders. And that's why I keep on saying that we don't need the majority to win, because the majority of the population are followers. The majority of the population thinks what everyone else thinks and walks with the crowd. If 10% of the population actively works for something, if 10% of the population stands up, even against heavy opposition, if 10% of the population won't back down, these people will be the majority of the people who actually are taking a stand, and followers will start to follow. So we need critical mass, and that might be 6, 10, or 12%. It's not 100%. It's not even 50%. Mass Faith Free says, protect your country from enemies within and without. You are dying. Next year, there will be no more Sweden. You'll be Swekan dictatorship. I have been watching a slow death of Sweden for years now. I don't know for how much longer it's going to go on. It has deteriorated, of course. I mean, I'm born in the late 70s. I grew up in Sweden in the 80s, and in 1990, there were 3 no-go zones in Sweden. Free too many, but they were free. A few years ago, the Swedish police said that there are 55 of them, and that's the Swedish police. I have seen higher numbers than that, but the Swedish police says there are 55 no-go zones or 55 vulnerable areas. So it's at least 55. And that's a lot. And they are there. The Swedish Prime Minister can stand in Washington, D.C. all day long and claim we have no-go areas in Sweden. They're still there. I mean, I've been to some of them. I've been thinking of going to some of the Swedish and Norwegian ones and film, but I would have to be very, very discreet because otherwise I would get in trouble I don't want. Fritänker says, what do you think about Åkesson? He seems a bit weak. Is there anyone that could replace him in the future? Actually, I think Åkesson is probably stronger than he might seem because he was able to create the Sweden Democrats. I mean, there was a party when he joined, but he didn't have anything to say. He was able to get them somewhere. He's been able to keep the party together. And I know there are a lot of internal conflicts in the Sweden Democrats and a lot of problems, but he's still able to grow in elections. So we'll see. I wish he would take a stronger stand when it comes to Islam and Islamization and things like that. But still, I prefer him over all the other party leaders in the parliament. Vladimir Ramirez says, I agree with that. Okay, good to know. Let's see. I don't know if anyone can replace Åkesson in the future. Someone has to. Maybe Matthias Karlsson, I'm not sure. I follow some of these people on Facebook, and I haven't really seen anyone who will be able to be this kind of figure who will unite this party and lead it well further on. Paolo Forever 2 says, what is your take on gender quotas? They seem to be popular in Scandinavian countries. Oh, I want to abolish them. In short, I don't want government-imposed discrimination, neither positive nor negative, in any way. Alleluia says, Swedes need to get rid of no-go zones using army. Well, first of all, the laws have to be... well, the police needs to go into these areas and stop all the lawbreakers. And you need to stop people who commit minor offenses. Sweden needs to do what Giuliani did to New York City. That's what should be done first. If that doesn't work, well, then they have to think about doing something else, like sending in the military. Laurie P says, wow, I didn't realize that it started back in Sweden back in the 1990s, the no-go zones. Amazing that Sweden is still staying afloat, only by God's mercy and grace. Well, I think Sweden has a different history. In the 19th century, there was revival in Sweden, and Sweden was a friend of Israel until the late 1960s, and I think this has helped Sweden. It's given Sweden the grace of God, but Sweden has removed itself from this and is going downwards, and it just keeps on going downwards. And I mean, okay, the constitutional changes seem to be stopped for now, and that's great. That's wonderful news, really. But uh, apart from that, there's so much going wrong. Mass Faith Free says, when you're at war for your life, every citizen must fight with all they have. Everyone quit your job, close school's business, realize what you're up against. Started fighting, pray first. Well, you always need to pray first. You know, I'm not really a Lutheran anymore. I'm more of an evangelical. But Martin Luther said once that he fears praying men more than fighting men, and he had a point when he said that. Absolutely. So hopefully we won't have any problems with the sound today. No one has complained about it yet, so I hope that's fine. Last time it was fine for 40 minutes or so, and then it started deteriorating. And I think there are a few British subscribers in here, or British people in here. So I'm going to London in roughly 3 weeks. I have given out the dates in some earlier live streams, but actually I'm not doing that anymore because I think I'm small enough to fly under a radar. So I don't think I will have a problem in entering the UK. If I'm stopped and they ask me, I'll say vacation. If they ask me what kind of business I have in visiting the UK. And I mean, vacation is true. I'm going to see Margaret Thatcher's grave. I'm going to see Big Ben, maybe Buckingham Palace. Who knows? So I will do a lot of vacation or touristy stuff. But of course, I will also produce a video or two, and I will live stream from London with the friend I'm going to meet there, with Charles Keatington, who was here last time when we discussed Stop Islamization of Sweden. And I think he's working on getting an organization well functioning. So we'll see what happens with that. He can explain that in a few weeks. Let's see. We of the People says, Gab member posted about a Swede speaks. He's a very constructive thinker. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Mass Faith Free says, tell people in our chat they might be of help. What do you want me to tell them? About my London trip? About Stop Islamization of Sweden? Or about something else? Laurie P says, go to Trafalgar Square and feed the pigeons. Yeah, you're right. I think I've been there once, but that's 25 years ago. I was in London in 92, 93, something like that. I think it was in 93. So it's a long time ago. I was there with my grandparents. And it will, of course, be a completely different experience to go there now as an adult. But the friend I'm going to meet who lives in Sweden, and we will meet at a London hotel, so that's great. He's been there a few times, so he will be able to guide me. And then I have some other people who I might be able to meet in London and interview. Morgan St. Clair says, Texas is a meritocracy and real feminists live in Texas. Our women carry guns and don't fear rapists. I can live with that kind of feminists. Actually, that's if there are any feminists I like, that's the one I like. Because I, of course, think that both men and women should be allowed to defend themselves. Mass Faith Free says, trip to London. Okay, I will tell them. Maybe on Sunday. Yeah, perhaps I will be able to follow you from the very start on Sunday. I might go to early church on Sunday. Usually I go to late church and I get to your chat somewhere after you started, maybe an hour or so. Let's see. Laurie P says, I was there once and the pigeons landed all over me. You must watch out for pigeon poop. Oh, I will. I don't want any bird SIT on me. Vladimir Ramirez says Texas is not a feminist, it's a traditionalist state. I guess that's true too. I should go to Texas someday. Uh, that would be funny. Maybe I'll be able to go there later this year or next year. We'll see. Uh, so I wondered, are you people getting notifications? Did you get a notification that I was going to live stream from YouTube? Did you see it on Twitter? Did you see it on Facebook? If you were notified in any way, just tell me how that happened. And actually, the reason I'm going to London now, there are several reasons. One reason is I want to visit some of these politically correct Western European countries before, well, before it's too late. Because I think that once I gain a momentum, I had some momentum before. My channel has been growing sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, and I'm pretty sure it will happen again. So at some point, I will become a too large public figure. And at that point, they just won't let me into the UK. Maybe not even to Sweden. You know, I gave up my Swedish passport a few years ago and became a Norwegian citizen. So that might very well happen. That at some point I will be stopped from entering the UK, maybe even from entering Sweden. That might happen. So I have to go to these places while I can. And second of all, as I mentioned sometimes, I am working on relocating to the United States, and once I do, I won't be able to travel to Europe all the time. I might be able to travel to Europe sometimes, maybe once a year or something like that, and do like a European tour, perhaps. But I won't be able to travel to different countries every month or every other month. That just won't be. I don't think I will have that kind of resources. Although I might. You never know. Uh, Pablo Forever 2 says, "What do you think of Freemasonry?" Well, I don't worry much about Freemasonry. I mean, I have no inside information on Freemasons. I know there are a lot of conspiracy theories going around on them. I don't know. I'm not too worried about that. Larisistan says best to see the UK before it's all gone. Yeah, I agree. Laurie P says Swede, please be careful when in the UK. Oh, I'm always careful. I mean, I don't try to provoke anyone. I mean, in public. I mean, not just for the fun of it or something like that. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I could participate in a demonstration for a cause. I could do that, and in that case, I would of course take a calculated risk what I'm doing, but in in uh, in no in no way am I trying to put myself at risk, because previously I did get some comments from people watching my videos who wanted me basically to just go out in the streets and fight with people. And why on earth should I do that? I mean, first of all, I don't want to get beat up, and second of all, that would land me in jail. And what can I achieve from jail? I think I can achieve more actually by producing these videos and these live streams and the things I'm writing for different alternative media outlets in Sweden and Norway. Maybe I'll be able to write something for some American media outlets too in the future. Who knows? I think it's easier for me to create this critical mass together with others by doing what I do than by becoming some kind of street fighter. Plus, I mean, that's not what I'm about. Let's see. Vladimir Ramirez says, if you want to move to a traditional country within Europe, you should look at Poland, Serbia, Russia, or Romania. Well, I was to Poland about a week ago, or, well, 1.5 weeks ago. And that was wonderful. I wanted to stay. I mean, I knew I had to go. I knew I had to leave in a few days, but it was just a great experience. And the thing about Poland has a very strong Catholic identity. I mean, I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a Roman Catholic in any way. I'm an evangelical, and we have our theological differences, things we don't agree on. But it doesn't really matter in this case because the point here is they have a very strong identity, they stand up for themselves, and they say we won't have that. Poland has Poland. They have their history. They had to fight the Nazis. They had to fight communism. They basically had a government that were Moscow puppets for 40 years. And before that, Poland saved Europe, or at least large parts of Europe, from an Islamic invasion at the gates of Vienna. It's more or less it's in their spines. They just have to do it, uh, and they have fought to become a country. Poland is a very old country, but they were divided between different European powers. They were divided between Austria, Prussia, and the Russians, and they ceased to exist as a country until the end of World War One. So Poland, I mean, I guess that's some of the things that created this very strong national feeling. And what I could see in Poland, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I was in Poland. Most of the people were, of course, Polish, and there were some tourists there. Everything was peaceful and nice, no problems. I did spot a few black people. I don't know if they were Africans or black Americans or wherever they came from, and no one bothered them. There was. I mean, I didn't see some crazy racist stuff in Poland. Of course, there will be individual racists, but I didn't see any crazy racist stuff. And but the thing is, I didn't see a single hijab in 4 days. I landed in Poland on a Thursday, I left on a Monday, and in all this time, I didn't see a single hijab, and I mean, I can't deny it. That was just great. And just after I got off the plane in Oslo, there were hijabs everywhere. And well, I don't like hijabs, and I mean, I don't hate Muslims. Let's make that clear. I don't hate Muslims, but I really, really, really dislike Islam. I guess you could say that I hate Islam, just like I don't hate communists, but I hate communism. It's the same thing to me. It's the ideas. Vladimir Ramirez says Catholic and Orthodox Christianity have a strong identity. In general, when it comes to Europe, you're right. However, the Pope in Rome, he doesn't seem to be a very strong Catholic, sadly. The old one was probably better. Mark Anthony says hello. Oh, hello to you too. Nice to see you here. Uh, so, what brought you here? How did you find out about this live stream, Mark Anthony? Mass Faith Free says it's abusing women. I assume you mean the hijab. Yes, that's abuse, really. And I mean, when people talk about this being some kind of freedom of choice, something like 99%, or maybe only 95% of the women who wear hijabs do that because they are forced to, because they don't dare to take them off. Uh, and why should we cater to that? I mean, I just can't see. I think the countries that are not yet Islamized, they should make sure that they won't become Islamized. The Islamic countries, fine, okay, they are kind of lost. I mean, I think the problems of the Islamic world, the only solution for these countries is to leave Islam and embrace Christ as their Lord and Savior. But until that happens, at least the non Islamic countries should be very careful about this. Mark Anthony says, I'm a subscriber in ABL lol. Oh, you subscribe too. I didn't know that, but of course I recognize you from ABL, obviously. And hopefully I'll be able to call in tomorrow. Last time I was a little busy because I usually live stream on Saturdays a few hours before ABL, and then I try to call in, but sometimes, like last night, I was a little busy. Lori P says, no hijabs. Poland almost sounds like paradise. I do not even hate Muslims, only Islam and what they believe. They are anti-Christ, against Christ. They say he is only a prophet, not the son of God. Exactly. And that's why some people, including liberal Christians or leftist Christians, pretend that Allah and and the and God and the biblical God are the same, and of course they're not. I mean, the Quran clearly states that Allah does not have a son, so it can't be the same. Okay. So In case anyone wonders, Olli Hakala just showed us how to get banned from the chat. Anyone who starts talking about anyone who spreads anti-Semitic conspiracies in here will get banned. And I hope I won't have to tell you this again today, because I'm kind of tired of that. Uh, Carol Powell says hijabs are in full view because it is more acceptable than a Christian cross. We sadly are not that acceptable now, but when I was little in the 50s, they were everywhere. I assume you mean the crosses. Um, which country are you talking about, by the way, Carol Powell? I mean, I see hijabs everywhere in Sweden and Norway, and even in Denmark. A few in Finland, not as bad. In Estonia and Poland, I haven't seen anyone. Let's see. Hilton 11,000 says, just at the weekend there was the rowing race on the Thames. Cameras had been bolted to the bridges, and the scooter gangs tried to steal the cameras of the bridge. Steal the cameras of the bridge? That sounds really crazy. Why would you want to do that? I don't get that. Carol Powell says, I'm in the UK. Okay. Well, I hope the UK turns around too, just like I hope Sweden turns around. And I hope France turns around. I hope Germany turns around. I hope Norway turns around. I hope Finland turns around. I hope Denmark turns around. Okay, I'm starting to repeat myself. Okay, I hope Canada turns around too. I hope all of these countries will turn around. Alice says nice mug. Oh well, okay, thank you. Hopefully, I will have a different mug in a few weeks because I ordered my own coffee mug to show it off here, but it takes some time to get these packages from Teespring. La Resistance says to create an air of chaos. Uh, oh yeah, absolutely. Hilton 11,000 says the cameras were expensive for the TV filming of the. Oh, it's okay. So they wanted to steal them because they were expensive. Okay. Uh, do you have any ideas about things I should discuss in my live streams or in my videos? I mean, I'm all up for getting perspectives from people. Uh, Morgan St. Clair says, "Are your Swedish Marxist women repulsive to girls worldwide? What's your opinion?" My opinion is that they're basically you have two kinds of women in Sweden, and of course, what you call the Marxist women are the ones you will see in the media because they will be in politics, in the media. Of course, then there are the other kind, which are not that outspoken, or they won't get through in mainstream media. So of course, not all Swedish women are crazy leftists, but I think, well, I mean, I don't see how you could be, why you would want to. I don't want to be blunt here, but why do you want to marry a woman who tries to act like a man? Because that's basically what identity politics or Marxism has turned into. So I don't see why anyone would want to do that. Mass Faith Free says Russians have beautiful scarves. Veil in church is respective. Free will church, but a hijab shows disrespect, giving everyone else the finger. That is what Muhammad does. Your views, morals. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I mean, I don't have a problem with the scarves in churches. Of course not. There are still some denominations. There is a conservative branch of Lutheranism called Lestadians. They even have some branches in the United States, uh, and and they put on these scarves in church. But that's something completely different than putting on a hijab and showing that you. I mean, the hijab really signals that you are an honorable Muslim woman, and you think non-Muslim women are, well, basically impure. Alice says two types of women. Are you sure? That's what I've been seeing, or Well, maybe there are three kinds. I don't know, but I'm saying not all women are the same. Not even in Sweden. That's the point I'm trying to make. Paolo Forever 2 says, "Is it true that a suburb in Stockholm has allowed the musin, what is that, to shoot 5 times a day?" I'm not really sure what you're trying to say there. Morgan St. Clair says, "China will be the largest Christian nation on earth by 2030. Marxist media won't report this." Yeah, I have seen that, but not in the mainstream media, of course. Let's see. Chris O says, "How is Norway doing?" Norway is doing not as bad as Sweden, but Norway has a lot of issues too, including what I was talking about in the beginning of this live stream with the Taharrush that happened in Stavanger, Norway, which, as I said, it's horrible and it has to be addressed. And the mainstream media won't touch this. So, speaking of Norway, Laurie P says, "How do you feel about Sylvie Listhaug being a Christian but supporting same sex marriage?" That is what I heard. I can't judge her faith. I don't know if she's a Christian or not. She wears her grandmother's cross, and it has some kind of significance to her. I don't know if she's an actual practicing Christian or if it's more of a cultural thing to her. I don't know. Of course, I don't support same-sex marriage, and I don't think she should. I know she turned around on that one pretty recently, and she did that out of emotional reasons, I think. And I don't think you should do that, but well, she's entitled to her opinion, and I don't agree with it. Uh, Lisa Leto says, "Heard Sweden outlawed religious schools." Uh, no, it hasn't really happened yet, but there's been discussions about that, and the Social Democrats said that they want to stop Islamic schools, or I mean religious schools, whether they're Islamic, Christian, or whatever. And I hope they won't. I mean, I'm all for stopping Islamic schools because Islamic schools basically just creates a self-segregation. But I don't think they should stop the Christian schools or the Jewish school in Stockholm. By the way, I think that should be fine. Uh, Paulo Forever 2 says, "Musin, Islamic call to prayer." Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. There is a place to the south of Stockholm called Fittja, and they have these Islamic prayer calls. And there was someone who complained about this on Twitter, and the moderates in that municipality south of Stockholm, and the moderates are supposedly the conservatives, but they're really not. They're pseudo conservatives. When it comes to cultural issues, they're really leftist, just like everyone else in parliament, maybe except for the Sweden Democrats, maybe except for them. But anyway, and they said, if you don't like this, you can move. I don't know what to say about that. I don't think there should be Islamic prayer calls in Sweden, period. If you want Islamic prayer calls, you can move to Saudi Arabia, or to Turkey, or to Iran, or to Somalia. Alice says, "I live there, never heard it. Do you live in Fittja?" Uh, let's see. Mass Faith Free says, "Hijab women are covering their beatings. They treat all other women as whores. But when you don't have a choice who you marry, your father is selling you like a whore." Yeah, that's pretty blunt, but I have to agree. That's true. Let's see, there was something else here too. Carol Powell says, "When you come to the UK, you might look into all the supermarket labels that are now halal passed. That is even Cadbury chocolate." Oh yeah, you're right. But if they at least have a halal sign on the food or on the items, I could be able to buy the things that's not halal. It's even worse if it's not labeled. I mean, I don't want halal, but as long as it is as it's there, I prefer it to be labeled so I know what not to buy. Let's see. Laurie P says, "I don't agree with it either. Same-sex marriage. I know she wears a cross, but we do not know much about her here in the USA. So I was wondering if she had a real relationship with Jesus or not." Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know her personally, so I can't really tell. Uh, Chris O says, "Islamic schools should be stopped. In the US, the Islamic in schools was stopped, it is considered a terrorist group. Uh, oh, you mean the Islamic schools or something like that? That's great. Vladimir Ramirez says marriage is a form of property rights. Well, I don't see I don't see marriage as property right. But as a Christian, the Bible says that a man and his wife are going to be one flesh, and that doesn't mean that anyone owns anyone. It means they are a union, and not only in. Flesh means both body and spirit. So you become a team who works together. We are no longer two but one. Of course, you're still your own individual, uh, but really, so. But I guess if you're talking about an Islamic marriage, it's something else. Especially if you have four wives or something like that. Mass Faith 3 says, only God can marry someone. Join as one. There is no other marriage. Everything else is lust, promiscuity. Yeah, and that's also a problem with what's happening in the West. Uh, because Islamization of the West is a consequence, a serious consequence. But that would never have happened if we would have had a strong Christian culture with actual believers, and we have a lot of believers. There are a lot of believers in America, in Central Europe. There are some in Western Europe. There are some in Canada. But without first, you have to destroy the family to destroy society, and that's what these cultural radical ideas had. They have been working at this, I guess, since forever. But with the French Revolution, these ideas gained a lot of ground, and since then, they really have been working on destroying society, and that's what opens up the door to Islamization. I mean, if Europe would be Christian, and truly Christian, there wouldn't have been any place for Islam. Let's see. Mass faith freezes promiscuity. Chat is slow. Uh, La Resistance, we agree. We have animals. Yeah, La Resistance said halal is animal abuse. Yes, so far as I know, yeah, that's true. Well, there's a reason the chat is slow. I got some people a few weeks ago who were spamming the chat with crazy stuff. So I used to put it on slow mode to avoid that. Vladimir Ramirez says, has Norway banned halal kosher slaughter? As far as I know, yes. I think there are. I think you can buy kosher in Norway. I think you can buy halal too, but it's not. But the slaughter is not in Norway. Or let no, actually, there is halal slaughter in Norway. I just remembered because the Islamic Council of Norway uh, put their stamp on the halal, and they get paid for it. Uh, which means if you buy halal meat in Norway, you are actually paying for the Islamization of Norway, which is another reason for me to oppose halal because I don't want to pay for Norway being turned into a caliphate. Uh, let's see. Morgan St. Clair says, real Jews believe in God. The common losers like Bernie Sanders don't believe in God, so they can't hide between anti-Semitism. Don't fear attacking communist Jews. They have never been real Jews. Well, I have no problems attacking Bernie Sanders. I like Ben Shapiro. If we're going to discuss Jews, I like the ones with sane opinions, which goes for all people of the world. Uh, let's see. Lori P says they also say a prayer over halal, and they do not pray to the same God as we do. So, for a Christian to eat halal meat, food, etc., is almost like eating cursed food. Yeah, basically, I agree. Laris Stone says this is a great channel. I am just new. Recommended by Mass Faith Free. Oh, thank you for your kind words, and thanks to Mass Faith Free for recommending this channel. Uh, let's see. Carol Powell says That was my point. They get paid for the halal stamped food. It is not just meat, so you are supporting Islam when you are unaware. Yeah, actually, I try to avoid all kind of businesses who 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 support Islam, but sometimes it's difficult to know. But I try to because I don't want to pay for the destruction of Western Europe. Mass Faith Free says, to bring hope, I pray everyone has their eyes wide open and can see what God is doing all around the world. Opening eyes. Islam is opening the eyes of people to what life is like without God. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. Uh, let's see. Morgan St. Clair says, Lenin and Trotsky and Bernie Sanders and George Soros are all, uh, quote, godless, close quote, Marxist Jews. Yeah, and the problem with them isn't that they are Jews, but that they are Marxists. I mean, George Soros, he's even anti Israel. He is funding anti Israel groups. So my problem with these people is not their ethnicity. I'm not sure about Lenin, by the way. I think Lenin, he might have had some Jewish ancestry, but he also had German and Swedish ancestry. But Trotsky, Bernie Sanders, and George Soros, absolutely, they are ethnic Jews, but they are also Marxists, and Marxism is the problem here. Larisistan says, it's getting hard to avoid Islam. You're right, it is difficult. And I mean, we should talk to Muslims, but we shouldn't support Islam. That's my view. Uh, and any Muslim who wants to discuss with me, I'm happy to do so. However, I have noticed that some of the Muslims I thought I knew have started to avoid me, probably because of what I'm doing. And, well, I can't force anyone to talk to me. Horses, our colleges and universities were taken over by Marxists. Yes, yes, that's called the long march through the institutions. The, that was coined by, I think it was an East German Marxist. No, it was a West German Marxist, and his idea was that instead of revolution, you would take over the institutions, the universities, the political parties, the media, even churches, and that has happened to a lot of the mainline churches. It happened to the Church of Sweden, it's happened to the Church of Norway, it has happened to the Church of England, and I think there are some of the churches in the US who also have been exposed to this. Laurie P says, Your Soros betrayed his own Jewish people. Yes, he did. That's how he started to build his fortune. But I really feel sorry for him. I mean, I hope he turns around too. I hope so. I don't want anyone to be lost, really. Let's see. Uh, Mass Faith Free says, bringing people back to a thankfulness of God's Christians, saints, principles, precepts, and morals, blessing farming for everyone, land for everyone, life, liberty, and happiness. Oh, that sounds great. Okay. Horses says Barbara Lerner Specter. I don't know if I should say that, but what about her? Because I know a lot of people use her as some kind of argument for this conspiracy theory that Jews were behind multiculturalism in Sweden, and I'm pretty fed up by that conspiracy theory. Uh, so if anyone else wants to get, I hate sounding like a dictator, but the chat is really my living room. I mean, we're actually in my living room right now, and if anyone wants to get banned from the chat, just share one of these conspiracy theories here, because you will only get one chance to do that. But hopefully no one does. And we have 28 people in here, and that's wonderful. And William Marshall says, I hope Soros turns around too, just before a truck rolls over him. Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but okay, I have a horrible humor, so yeah, I still hope he turns around. Like I hope for everyone. I hope Hillary Clinton turns around too. I hope Justin Trudeau turns around. I hope the Swedish Prime Minister turns around. Uh, I mean, that's really what I do. And We should be careful not to be consumed of hate. I mean, that's true to me too. I mean, I can have very strong feelings about people and ideas, and really, we just have to be careful with that because we don't want to get consumed. Uh, let's see. Horses, horses. She's a Marxist from Wisconsin. Oh, she's from Wisconsin. Okay, she's from a great state, but she's still a Marxist. That's sad. I'm very fond of Wisconsin. I have been there. MCRN Donegar says, "Do you think feminism is part of why Sweden turned into a dictatorship, censoring migrant crimes?" I think third wave feminism is a part of this, but it's really political correctness. That's really what it's about. And third wave feminism is a part of this political correctness, together with identity politics. And you can't really speak openly about things in Sweden without paying a heavy price. And I think people should talk openly anyway. I mean, really, because you have to stand up for yourself. You just have to. And I know a lot of people, they won't because they are too afraid of losing their job, or they are afraid of losing their friends. You know what? I came out as a conservative and a Christian and a critic of Sweden's migration policies and of Islam right after Easter in 2014. And within a few weeks, I had lost a lot of my old friends. I lost some of my relatives. I mean, they just stopped talking to me. But in that case, I can just say, okay, these friends were not real friends. And these people who I thought were family were not family. I mean, sure, I share DNA with some people who just won't talk to me. And what can I do about that? I can't do anything about it. I can pray for them, like I can pray for my old friends who turned out to be false friends. And there's not much more I can do about that. I still have to stand up for what I believe because I just have to. That's just the way I'm made. Laurie P says, "That is so true. Hate is sin, but love people. But don't be afraid to point out when someone is wrong. Jesus always pointed out to people what their sin was." That's correct. I agree with you completely. And I have read the gospel enough times to know that. A lot of people have this skewed idea of Jesus that he never pointed out anything, but he points out stuff all the time in the gospels. But what you also notice if when you read the gospel is Jesus was hard towards the people who were using their position to oppress other people, but he was forgiving and merciful towards towards the people on the bottom. I mean, he didn't tell anyone to go on sinning, of course not. But the woman who was taken, who was caught in the act, I don't know what the English version of the Bible calls that, but the woman who was caught in the act and was brought before Jesus by all these men who said that stone her, that's what the law says. And he says, "Let the one without sin or without guilt cast the first stone." And no one threw any stones because we have all fallen short of the glory of God, and they knew it. They knew that they too had done bad stuff. And then he asks this woman, "Where are these people?" "They left," she says. And he says, "So they didn't judge you? I don't judge you either. Go and sin no more." He didn't say go and keep on sinning. He said go and sin no more. Or go your way, sin no more, Lord says. Yes, I'm quoting from my memory, and I've read this passage in Swedish and Norwegian. I am slowly reading through an English language Bible now. The what's it called, the New International Version. But I'm reading through that slowly at the same time as I'm reading through a Norwegian translation faster. I also like to compare different translations. So I think that's fun. Laurie P says, "You are not alone. Many in my own family will not talk to me either. I have less friends than I did 4 years ago. I'm sad about that. That's the price we pay. But hopefully you have better and more real friends now." William Marshall says, "A lot of my friends look at me as if I'm a lunatic now. If only they could see." Yeah, I know the feeling. And Mass Faith Free says, "It takes courage to bring justice. Justice isn't hatred. Soros, Clinton, the endless list. Justice is from God. Government was created by God for justice. That's right. I agree completely. And Mass Faith Free also says, I hear there is no justice in European courts except Sharia justice, which is like justice for black people during slavery. I think that's true in many European countries. Maybe it's better in Poland and Hungary. Uh, in Sweden and the UK, I think you're basically correct. Vladimir Ramirez says in America the Constitution was created on the basis of Christian morality, including the Second Amendment. Yes, including that one. Uh, I agree completely. William Marshall says King James Version. Oh, I have that one too. But trying to read out loud 17th century English, it's just made my tongue. I just couldn't do it. There's too many halves, and I just can't even even closely pronounce the English in that one. The New International Version, I can kind of work with it. So let's see. Well, since we're all here, uh, do you have any other favorite YouTube channels, political or otherwise? MCRN Doniger says, do you think a lot of Swedish live in denial, thinking they live in a safe area for now, far from these migrants, that the chaos and crimes won't spread to them? They are naive and in denial. I think that's the case with a lot of people in Sweden, uh, because Sweden, of course, have this. Well, I guess you could call it white flight. Uh, peop, Native Swedes who can afford it leave the areas who turn into no-go areas, and also immigrants who live there who can afford it and who have been partially or completely assimilated leave too. So these areas really turn into really dysfunctional ones, ruled by gangs. And the only native Swedes who stay are the ones who can't leave. And this means and then also there are a lot of people who live in nice middle class areas with no real problems and who just won't see what's going on, maybe only a few miles away. But they will be surprised because it just won't stop there. I mean, it's this this development or whatever you should call it is something that spreads. Laurie P says, I have real brothers and sisters in Christ, which are my real family. I hear of many believers who have lost friends, family because of speaking the truth. They don't agree and they go their own way. Yes, I know. A problem in Scandinavia is that a lot of people who might be believers, who might actually believe in the gospel, but they don't understand the political implications. And I mean, I would say God doesn't have a party. Of course not. But a lot of people, they have very naive ideas when it comes to politics. Uh, I think I probably sound more like an American than like a Western European. Even when we talk about, I probably sound more like an American Christian than a Western European Christian when it comes to politics. Let's see. MCRN Doniger says, "What do you think of Peter Sweden?" Oh, I like him. I follow his channel, and yeah, I like him. He's fine. Uh, Also, he's a Christian, and that's great. Mass Faith Free says, "Our founding fathers said, personally, I can forgive. As a servant of the people, as a government, I can't. I can show leniency if there is true repentance, no leniency for those who show no remorse." Oh, that's a good quote. I absolutely agree with that one. And you have to separate between, as an individual Christian, I should of course forgive everyone who sins against me, because Christ has forgiven me all my sins. Uh, but if I'm in a position of political power, no matter if I'm the prime minister or if I'm in local council or whatever, I still have to go by the laws, because if we say we will just forgive everyone and we won't punish anyone for what they do as a political system, then we will have lawlessness, chaos, and anarchy. It's the two regiment teachings, more or less. And I think So I think uh, I could as an individual Christian I should forgive, but if I'm in power, yes, I should still forgive, but justice have to be done. Uh, Lori P says, yes, you do sound more like an American Christian. Yeah, I think I have been inspired. Horses says, I want to let you all know I really care, but my parents and grandparents were there. Okay, I'm not sure where they were, but okay. Texas State DG says, people don't want to believe the government is against them. It makes them angry at you. Yeah, you're right. And I think we need government, but the bigger the government, the worse it gets. I mean, my idea of politics is that the purpose of politics is to limit the amount of evil in society. That includes the evil that comes from the political system, the evil that government can create. That's why we need limited government that only does the basic function of government: inner and outer defense, the courts, protecting contracts, stuff like that. I don't want a large welfare state government that takes from Peter and pays Paul, or who takes from Peter and Paul to pay for the government mainstream media to indoctrinate them, or like in Sweden and Norway, who starts funding churches, and then these churches, instead of preaching the gospel, they will start preaching some kind of watered down Christianity combined with statist or socialist ideas. I don't want that. So I want the government to be as small as possible, as large as necessary, and as small as possible. That's what I say. I used to say I'm a libertarian Christian, or I mean a libertarian conservative. I guess in an American context, it would really just I could really just call myself a conservative. But I mean, it's sort of the smaller the better, as long as it can do what it should do, which is to protect people from evil, protect the borders, stuff like that. Okay, uh, so we've been online for a while now, and I think it's soon time for me to round this up. But before I do that, well, first of all, feel free to give me any questions or suggestions, and feel free to support my work. And thanks to everyone who are here, who have been hanging out with me during this live stream. So I have one last story to share with you. Here in Norway, we have a Labour Party politician named Hadja Tajik. She is of Pakistani background. She is one of the two vice leaders or chairpersons of the Labour Party, and she grew up in a very Christian part of Norway, in the small town of Bjørheimsbygd, in the Norwegian Shire of Rogaland, in western Norway. Her parents were Islamic fundamentalists, but she is not. Her father had a shop, and to attract customers, he couldn't shout Allah Akbar, because then the Christian conservatives, where they had settled, would not have become patrons of his shop. So, in short, Hadja Tajik, who also was married for a few years to a non Muslim ethnic Norwegian, was saved by growing up in a Christian area without a large Islamic presence. When she married Stefan Heggelund, her ex husband, who is a politician in the right party, Høyre, Norway's pseudo conservatives, she was criticized by a fellow Muslima for marrying a non Muslim, something that Islam clearly forbids. Tajik responded that, quote, others cannot define my religion for me. I am born with a head and I like to use it. Close quote. Of course, Tajik can pretend to be a Muslim, but her actual faith is nowhere close to Islam, and thank God for that. But if she would publicly denounce Islam, she would be in danger, and that's sad. So we should pray that Hadja Tajik accepts Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, of course. And before I round it up, I will have a short look here. Lisa Leto says, have you heard of Stream It? They pay for content. I have never heard of them, but I should look them up. Let's see. Vladimir Ramirez says, if you look at the increase of government, it's coincided with the increase of single mothers, corruption, crime, and economic stagnation. Exactly. Absolutely. Morgan St. Clair, Lenin was not Jewish. And if you go on about that, you will be kicked out. I won't say it again. Uh, Mass Faith Free says, forget it. She has two minds like MK Ultra. She can't be turned at any time. Everyone who went to public school has two minds. Uh, do you think gold and silver is money? If not, you have two minds. Well, yeah, I agree. The only sound money should be gold and silver. I'm all for the gold standard. Uh, I'm not really sure about the two minds things. I mean, I agree that a lot of people have this double think, but at the same time, I was a horrible atheist until uh, until I became a Christian. And of course, it didn't mean that Hadja Tadji was saved in a Christian sense. I meant that she was saved from Islamic fundamentalism by growing up in that area. That's what I meant. Uh, and I still think everyone can be saved if they open up to it. Uh, and God can save everyone, but we have to make that one decision. Vladimir Ramirez says public school is just indoctrination. Yes, I agree. Uh, and I think that's the reason why homeschooling is outlawed in Sweden, sadly. Vlad Bisonet says, hello again, my brother. Well, hello again to you too. Uh, and yeah, I'm sorry, Vlad, but it's just about time to wrap this up. Uh, but I might live stream again on Monday, Thursday. But in any case, I will be back on Saturday on my regular time. And I intend to produce a few videos in between, of course. So, thank you all. Have a nice Holy Week. And until next time, God bless.